Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Thank you guys all for joining in. Today we're going to be going over magazine releases. On the left hand side you have what CZ Custom refers to as the O style magazine release, and on the right hand side you have different variations of what CZ Custom calls the D style magazine release. So that's a look at the two profiles and shapes. Again, if you have a particular type installed on your firearm, you would want to stay inside that family. This is an example of a 97 frame. As you can see, it has an O style magazine release. And if I wanted to swap it out, I would change it out ideally for an O style magazine release option, such as this. So here we have a simple serrated, normal length, O style magazine release. I could swap it out and install this extended length, fully serrated face magazine release. And the same thing goes for the D style magazine release. This is going to be your normal length. This right here is going to be your extended length, your extended magazine release. And then this is going to be your extended length Shadow 2 magazine release. Has an adjustable paddle that is fully checkered versus the simple serrations and the smooth back of these other two. So for this video we'll be using as an example a D-style framed magazine release install. So these are the options that I have here today. One example is going to be a PO1 frame. That's going to have your normal length magazine release. Again, that's a D style frame. Or similarly, I have a PCR frame, which has the exact same magazine release. And I can install any one of these in those frames. If I have a full-size frame, which also happens to have the normal length magazine release, I can again choose any one that I want and install it on this frame. Now, some of your SPO1 models and Shadow versions have your extended magazine release, and again your Shadow 2 magazine release is installed on your Shadow 2 from the factory, but you can choose any one of these magazine releases as long as you stay inside the family of the frame and magazine release. They're all interchangeable. So getting out the examples out of the way, we're going to go ahead and pick up this PCR. You'll want to remove the grips. So whatever tool you'll need to remove the grips from the frame, you'll go ahead and do that. You'll want to make sure that your hammer is fully uncocked and in the down position. And the part that we're going to be working with is actually going to be this retaining screw. You'll see that installed in the frame to the left of it. Now from the factory, they install this screw with threadlocker and or possibly stake this screw. So by no means is this an easy task to remove this screw if the screw is staked from the factory. The amount of thread locker that they put on here as well can also make it very difficult to remove the screw from the frame. So all the warnings have been put out. All the risk is in your hand. By all means, do at your own risk. Sometimes this is not as easy as I'm about to make it look here on camera. So you're going to need a flathead screwdriver to securely fit into the screw so that you can put enough pressure and have enough grip to remove this from the frame. You can use a vise if you want to. This has actually been started, but as you can see when I turn the head, that it was actually staked from the factory, so it took a lot of pressure to remove and loosen the screw. Now the reason why you'll want to have your hammer in the down position is so that the screw can be removed once it reaches the trigger bar. If the hammer was in the cock position, the trigger bar would be towards the rear and would not allow enough room for you to remove that screw. Looks like I cleared the threads on that, and my screw should be able to fall out. Now as you'll see, there was quite a bit of thread locker on this screw as well. So again, just another warning that you'll need a lot of pressure to remove the screw. If you think that you might damage it and you're already ordering parts online for a different size magazine release, I would go ahead and just order another retaining screw, because the likelihood of damaging that one is pretty high. The spring that we're going to be dealing with is actually going to be visible inside the frame right there. That is your magazine release tension spring. You'll see me put pressure on it and it springs back. But now that I remove that screw, it's going to be accessible from the top. Again, the reason to remove your grips is so that you can hold that spring inside that channel while you simultaneously take the spring, move it, and you'll see me put pressure on with my left thumb to hold it inside the channel that it sits in, but all I do is move it up. Now once I have moved it up, you'll see that it's still sitting inside its channel right here and right here, but I've now given enough room that the magazine release can be removed either left or right. On your O-style magazine releases, you would only be able to remove this from the right hand side of the frame. Now after your magazine release is removed, you can go ahead and install your new chosen length magazine release. So this is actually the one that was installed into the PCR frame. So we're just going to go ahead and pick up the Shadow 2 magazine release so that I can show you that it's interchangeable. Now once you place it in, you'll want to make sure that it's flush with the right hand side of the frame. Again, you want to take your thumb, put pressure on your magazine release spring while you push it back down and into the frame. Once you push it back down and you can feel it set into place, again, making sure that your magazine release is flush on the right hand side of your frame, it'll allow you to push your spring down. You'll put it back underneath your trigger bar. Put it back underneath your trigger bar spring and set it into the frame. You place your trigger bar spring back over your magazine release tension spring. When you replace the retaining screw, you want to go about the distance of when it makes contact with the first spring, so that you can reassure that your trigger bar spring, is properly set under your trigger bar and is under the trigger bar in its proper groove, which is right here. On the other side, it should be in the exact same place, in the exact same proper setting as I just showed. Once you know that the trigger bar spring is in place, you can go ahead and start tightening down the retaining screw while simultaneously checking and making sure that none of your springs have come out of contact and out of its place setting. Once you know that everything is where it needs to be, you can go ahead and tighten your screw fully back down. Now again, from the factory, this screw has thread locker on it, and I highly recommend placing new thread locker on it if you don't plan on removing this screw. You're gonna go ahead and test your function. Make sure that your magazine's drop free and that nothing is binding inside the frame. So magazine's drop free. The magazine retains the magazine. The magazine release retains the magazine and only is released when you press the button. Again, once you know everything is functioning properly, you go ahead and reinstall your grips, reinstall your slide and your slide stop, slide release, and do one more function test to make sure that everything is running properly. So that was a quick look on how to change your magazine release. If you guys have any questions, don't be afraid, hit me down below in the comment sections. I appreciate you guys viewing. This is Abyss 1232. Shoot safe and shoot straight.